Okay, so today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite indie companies, and that is Black Mask. Now, this is going to be part one. I have lots of other favorite titles from this company, and I didn't realize how much I liked from them until I went to the actual site and started looking at a list, and they've done a lot of great stuff. They're one of the more unique companies for sure. So I'm going to talk about a few and the company kind of just as a whole and just let you know what's good from them. So let's get started. Now, just really quick, just a little thing that I really like about their logo is it looks like a B. It kind of looks like an M if you turn it this way, but it definitely looks like a mask. So kudos on this cute little brand. You've got a better picture of it in the back. But I always just liked that it kind of incorporates the name and the imagery into it. Okay, so first one up. I've already kind of talked about this series before, and it's called There's Nothing There. I would compare it to Snot Girl by Brian Lee O'Malley. But this one feels more mature, sexier, and definitely scarier than Snot Girl is. The artwork is done by Marie Lovett, and really, there's just some really creepy, crawly pages throughout this thing. I really love the detail in this book, I love the colors, and my favorite part would have to be the long title pages that kind of make each issue feel like it's its own entity. There's a girl who's basically born into being a celebrity. After a weird occult party, she starts to see all of these ghosts. They keep warning her that something bad's about to happen, and in order to keep the demons away, she has to keep all eyes on her. This book gets to be pretty rowdy and pretty dark. But overall, it's a really fun and wild ride. It's really dark in what happens to the main character and in its artwork. And overall, it just feels like a good old-fashioned horror story. So this next one up is called We Can Never Go Home. And I really liked this one. It's a romance story. I would say it's kind of a cross between X-Men and Deadly Class. It's definitely a mutant Bonnie and Clyde. It's super teenage angsty vibes, and I really liked the relationship between the two characters. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking. There's these really cool cameos. The banter between the couple is just super adorable. And then the book gets real serious real fast. I think this is for young adults. It's a little shorter. It's only $9.99 compared to some of the other books, so that kind of shows you the length compared to some of the other series. But for it being a one-off and it being an original story, I think it's worth the $10. There's these two teenagers. They find out that they're in a similar situation or they have similar abilities. They decide that they're gonna run away and take on this heist, and then the government comes after them, and then everything as you know kind of goes sideways and changes. I really enjoyed this series, and I think that a youthful or young couple or a young teenage girl might really enjoy this novel. So, after that, we have 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. Now, this one actually got a lot of praise. There was a lot of hype behind this book. Even just looking at the back, you can kind of see that a lot of creators were totally into it. This one has a lot of variations of it, and I'm pretty sure it was on an Eisner Award list for a little while. There's been some local comic shop day stuff, and overall seems to be kind of the more popular one from Black Mask. It is close to 200 pages. It sits at $14.99, but I would say that it's pretty well worth it. The best way I can describe this comic is that it goes big in almost every single aspect. And this book just tries really hard with what you can do with the comic, that it's worth it just to see their layouts and panels. This alone is a 2-page, 24 panel sequence of 6 different characters talking to each other over a truck radio. This book is a lot of fun. It reminds me a little bit of like Stranger Things in that it has a lot of like 80s nostalgia and like the power of friendship, but it is a lot more mature. It starts off with a group of cons trying to approach an old friend so they can get him to tag along in their latest heist. His daughter doesn't want him to be any part of it and just wants him to stay home and be safe and them to like figure out their money troubles another way. So, in order to put a halt to the bad guys and their robbery, they decide that they're going to take on the robbery themselves and do it first. That way there's no bank for them to rob. This book is very ambitious. It has a lot of twists and turns. Again, it's a full series. You even get to get a little bit of an epilogue at the end. There was one tiny little thing that bothered me throughout it, and it was that the character's age was almost slightly too young. Everyone was set at 11. Some of the stuff they were taking on would make more sense if they were like 13, 14. It's just more of a preference thing for me, but there were some really radical and ridiculous situations that they got into where I was like, you're just like 10. You actually can't be doing it. But that, again, kind of just proves how ambitious this book is. I think it would be just a really cool gift for anyone who likes action movies or like 80s movies or like heist-related things. Next up, I have a series that was good enough they decided to do not only 2 volumes, but they're currently working on a 3rd. It's coming out in issues right now. But it would be Space Raiders. Now, this one feels like it was done by Robert Rodriguez. It's totally got like this cool 70s grindhouse feel to it. It starts off with this ex-captain who's just trying to get back into the Space Raider community, and it leads him on to some pretty wild antics. The artwork and coloring for this book is just phenomenal. Again, it's got this really cool psychedelic feel to it. It's brutal, it's metal, and it's got this really sweet, like, Latin feel to it. And the ship that the Space Riders are in is known as the Santa Muerta, and the main character actually has, like, a Spanish accent and whatnot, and there's even few Spanish conversations held throughout the story. I got to this page, and I had realized that some of this art was done in 3D. So of course I did what any sane person would do, pulled out a pair of 3D glasses and reread the entire first graphic novel. Now, the cool thing about this book is that it works in 3D the entire time. I thought it was just gonna be that page. There's a few other like sound effects that are kind of in that like 3D like offset. I have no idea how 3D glasses work. I don't know if it's the 2 color, but like even just like the yellow, even just now, even just looking at it at the cover with these on, the eyes are highlighted, this is highlighted, the effects it has on like the yellows and orange make this book even like trippier, even in the scenes that don't have that double effect. So if you get a chance not only to read this book or want to reread it or experience it from a different perspective, try it with a set of 3D glasses. Like, honestly, I went and bought volume 2 immediately as I figured this out because it was like that cool. Rarely do you get to experience something like that, and I don't know if they did it on purpose, I don't know if it's just the style, but the fact that this even like works kind of just blew my mind. And last but not least, now this one's my personal favorite, and I don't know if it's the first one that I had read from Black Mask, but it was definitely the first one that I had realized I have to start collecting things from this company because I have to recommend this to people and give this and force this onto my friends because they definitely need more attention and love that they get, and the title that I am referring to is Beautiful Canvas. I had like no like background on it. I saw like a few issues and I picked up number 1 and I read it and I loved it, and it's a lot of layers in a really, really small book. It's $14.99. It's not quite as thick as some of the other ones that were $14.99, but I would say it's definitely worth the story. I want to compare it to a mix of like X-Men and Doom Patrol, and like I know both of those things like were kind of created around the same time and have like similar traits, but this one kind of like does a really good job of putting those two things together, or I would say like kind of reference both of those series. X-Men and its characters, and Doom Patrol and its like plot and like how meta it is. This is the only book that I have read where it kind of like answers me. There were moments where I was kind of just like reading through and thought like, had like an idea or like a statement like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, or like, oh, that wouldn't work out, and the book legit clapped back and told me, you're overthinking it. It knows what it's doing, it knows where it's going, it has really great art, it has anthropomorphic characters, and honestly, you like just like wacky, vengeful women, weird mutant humans, and a bit of a romance tale, it's here. There's so many like outside references to like our world that are mixed in, and like the imagery, the color for it is like great, and like I don't even know, like it was a ride for sure, and I really, really liked the story, which it is this female assassin who is hired to take out all of these like meta children who are being triggered by this woman who basically just wants to watch the world burn. There's no rhyme or reason to the chaos. There's a father who knows what's going on, who needs to like save his son, and then there's this like internal argument with the main character because her and her wife are like also trying to conceive a child, and you just have like flaming babies and no one to control them, and trying to handle a child and an evil overlord is really, really difficult. The artwork is great, the coloring's great, the loving, tender, and damn betrayal moments are like wild, there's creatures, and it's just, it's a lot of fun. Like if you just want to get lost and see something different, it's definitely in beautiful canvas. And even the way that they tie the title in to like the whole thing, I can't even. It's too meta. It's too meta for me to explain, and I'm just gonna butcher it and just read Beautiful Candace, please. Don't overthink it. Read Beautiful Candace, please. And that's all I have for Black Masks right now. Like I said, I've already got part 2 planned. I really like this company. They've been a little bit like more tedious in how much they've been putting out in the last year. I hope that changed. Like I said, they have Space Riders number 3 out currently. Loud should be out any month now, and I'm pretty excited to see Sex, Death, Revolution out in volume, and maybe them even do like another cool local comic shop day, because that's a real neat thing about Black Mask. They have actually made real collectibles, and some of the stuff's just really neat. Like they had a series that came out with a vinyl, they've had series that come out with bandanas, they've had series out in oversized like neon hardcover, and I really like the quality of their product and their story, and these guys just need more recognition. So if you come across a Black Mask book, don't be afraid to give it a try. They're not like terribly expensive, and it's a great team, and like they just definitely need the support. So yeah, I will be back with a part 2. Until then, read, and we'll meet up again fairly soon or something. Me and this camera, that is. I don't know who you are. I'll see you around though.